I would just ask for Sarah if you could just make sure everything is completely still in there.
Yes, it
and
is.
I will start now.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Val, and I work for the North London Waste Authority as part of the waste prevention teams. Welcome, everyone. I would love to welcome you all for this super yummy food waste demonstration. This is in collaboration with Enfield Council, and we will shortly be joined by professional chef and sustainability advocate Sarah Moore, who is in the background right now, and she will be sharing her top tips to reducing food waste and showing us how to make some great recipes to use up your leftovers during this festive period. I will be hosting today's session. I will just wait another maybe a minute or so to just see if everyone joined in. And I will wait for my colleague to give me the go ahead. Great, so I think we have enough people to start. So before we start, I have some technical notes. So just to make sure that everything works okay for everybody, there is an option to add subtitles to your screen if you would find this useful or helpful in any way. Please note that this is not 100% accurate. You can do this by selecting the CC option on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You should also see a Q&A session on the top right-hand corner, again, of the webinar screen. Please feel free to write your questions and suggestions about this presentation or any questions, that you might have for Sarah in the chat, and we will try and answer all your questions throughout the webinar and also at the end of the session, of course, if time permits. So again, Sarah, she does welcome us to even interrupt her in case you got really confused about something that she's saying. So feel free to ask any questions from now onwards. If we run out of time at the end with Q&A sessions and everything, please email us your questions and we will get back to you ASAP. Our email address is on the last slide of this presentation, which of course I will show at the end. We also have the website for Enfield Council for local residents in case you need to find more details or more detailed information about your borough. So just to give you a little bit of perspective for people that, for people who do not know who we are and what we do. North London Waste Authority, also known as NLWA, is the statutory waste disposal authority for the 7 North London boroughs that you see on the map, including Enfield. The key priorities of North London Waste Authority is to arrange for recycling and treatment for most boroughs. We also manage the reuse and recycling centres of these boroughs, except actually for Enfield, and we promote waste minimisation and recycling. The key priorities for the waste prevention team is to educate residents living and working in North London, or in North London, in these North London boroughs, on reuse, reducing waste, recycling. And we do that through community events, presentations, engagement businesses or engaging businesses, holding stalls, upcycling workshops, and school education programs. Many of you here might be acquainted with few of our outreach activities, focusing on food waste, such as Waste Less Lunch Free, food waste stalls at universities and offices, and food waste preventions such as this one, some events that we do, such as this one we are doing today. Now, due to COVID-19, we are doing this online, and this is our first ever online food demo. So we're looking very much forward to it. And yeah, today's event will have a lot of information about food waste prevention throughout the cooking demo. And as I mentioned, we welcome all your questions throughout. And please feel free to start typing your questions from now. So just to introduce Sarah, the chef. Sarah Moore is the star of the demo today, of course. Sarah spent 12 years running the hospitality to a busy recording studio, cooking for many bands and orchestras. A great interest in food, environment and sustainability led to a focus on catering using local and seasonal ingredients with a more sustainable practice. She did a master's in anthropology of food in 2016, and now she sells British artisan cheeses. Having been a working mother, juggling a career and household, she knows the reality of balancing a healthy menu with the pressure of time and getting the meals at home cooked. Sarah still loves to cook and demonstrate healthy cooking tips and how to use your ingredients better. On that note, I would like now to hand over to Sarah. So, hi, Sarah.
Hello, hi there, good afternoon, everybody, and it's really nice to be doing this. So, thanks for the introduction, Val, and the idea of this demo is about the seasonal ingredients that we end up wasting an awful lot of. So the demonstration I'm going to focus on uses those as the central themes, the central ingredients. We're going to look at using the classic Christmas meal. We always have leftovers of that, and we're going to make what's called a Christmas leftover pie. 1. 2, we're going to make a soup with some of those classic ingredients, and 3, stuffed potato skins. And amongst those, I'm also going to throw in different tips and hacks. So although I am a chef, I am very much talking to you in the context of home life, and as a single person living on my own, you know, that's also something to consider when you're cooking and making ingredients last. So I'm going to cover a lot. I'm going to pull in a lot of different strands here. So one of the really interesting and shocking facts are that 70% of the food that's wasted in this country actually comes from our homes, and 70% of that total is food that's perfectly edible. So that's not the potato skins and apple cores, it's actually food, either good enough ingredients or we put too much on our plate. That amounts all up to 9.5 million tons per annum of wasted food. And so that is really shocking, and that's all of us, you know, that's me and that's you, that's all of us. And you know, it's something that does cause me, you know, it inspires and drives me to think better about the way I conduct my individual practice around food and also professionally. So if you kind of think about it in monetary terms, this adds up to, on the average family, £730 a year. And for single households, because it's less ergonomic to cook one person, that amounts actually up to £210 per annum. So it's disproportionately big. It's almost the equivalent of one shopping bag out of 5 that gets chucked out. So 244 kilos of food per person. So those are shocking. So if you think about your ingredients differently, that's almost like the #1 key. That's the biggest driver of this. And I've got some different ideas to share with you. I learned an awful lot of tips from the Love Food, Hate Waste, which advertised very strongly a few years ago. Love Food, Hate Waste have got a very good website, and they've got excellent ideas on there. And they came up with this idea of the rescue recipe. So it's a kind of a go-to idea to use up your leftovers. So with Christmas in mind, we're going to be using that. I just got to realise that over Christmas there are 5 top wasted foods. So no surprise, turkey is one of them. Turkey, gravy, carrot, Brussels sprouts and gravy are the top 5 wasters. And actually I'm going to be using all of those for our leftover pie, leftover Christmas pie. And not only do we have food that's left over from the fact that we cook too much, but we also buy too much of those ingredients in the first place. So I'm also going to feature carrots and parsnips in the soup. And then potatoes more broadly are one of the big wasters, generally speaking. I'm going to make a really yummy and comforting stuffed potato skins that uses store cupboard ingredients and tips. So on the subject of store cupboard, if you think about your store cupboard differently, it's one of the best things you can do to underpin this idea. I'm just going to reach for some examples, excuse me. Okay, so your store cupboard really is the means by which you can make these things happen. And there's just a few obvious things that I've got here. Obviously your oil, so you've got sunflower oil or vegetable oil, which is an oil that can go up higher, you fry an egg in that, or saute potatoes. Olive oil for dressings and casseroles, that you want the flavour of olive oil. And then for Asiatic flavours, I love to have some sesame oil because you only need a tiny amount of that, so a little bit goes longer. But you can't fry in that because the rate at which it burns is much lower. Then, obvious things like tinned fish, this is tuna. Then grains, whether it's pasta or couscous or brown rice, white rice. I've got some lentils there, because it's a good idea to think of grains as being the carrier for using up things. So you could cook off some lentils or pasta and then add your bits and pieces, fridge forage, and then add that in, and it can be a good meal to take to the office in the days when we used to go to the office, that is. And then there's some what I call big gun flavors. So these are gherkins, which are great for potato dishes. Capers, I forgot the name of these things. Caper berries. A big burst of flavour for such a tiny little thing. If you were making a lentil salad, just a little teaspoon of that would enliven things hugely. Vegetable stock, chicken stock, stock cubes, that really does give you a very wide palette of ideas. Tomato puree, tinned tomatoes, and then some favourite herbs and spices. I always think of these in 2 categories. You have your aromatics, which are the Mediterranean style, European style, so thyme, oregano. Now, near to me, I'm actually an Enfield resident, so in Bounds Green and in Green Lanes for that matter, there's a lot of Turkish and Greek shops. And I bought this enormous packet of oregano on the stalks, and it's just fantastic. And it was like 80p or something ridiculous. And I stripped the herbs off and put them in a jar. And you just add half a teaspoon to something and it enlivens it and just brings an awful lot more flavour to it. Yes, here, garlic, dried garlic. I always say I used to be really sniffy and horrified at this idea. But that was coming from a chef's perspective, that you have to do everything fresh. But it's a brilliant ingredient, especially for doing things like little croutons, where if you put fresh garlic in and you put it into a hot oven, it's likely to burn and then go bitter. Fennel seeds, great. Okay, this just happens to be one of my favourites, Sumac. So it's lemony. Sometimes people say, oh, I never knew what sumac was. Well, it just gives a citrusy flavour, so it's really, it gives you an awful lot. Chilies, we love chilies. Here's another one for rescue recipes. This is a tin of a jar of curry paste. Again, I used to turn my nose up at that idea, but actually the truth is they're really very good, and you can transform a few ingredients very quickly into something quite tasty with store cupboard ingredients. And this is a bar of cream coconut. It keeps forever, and you grate it in and it brings lovely creaminess to things. So, you know, the store cupboard is something that you think of differently and draw upon for making a very wide range of things. Okay, I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to crack on with some demos. So the first thing I wanted to show you actually was, here we go. A lot of people throw away things before they should do. Now here's a cauliflower, and it says best before the 9th of December. Now I'm just going to crack this open, and I am going to ask Val actually to tell me, can you see me okay at this angle?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, so I'm going to just open this up, and by the way, for Enfield residents, I hope you recognise this little caddy. So I'm going to first of all take off the leaves, which I'm going to use in our soup. So I'm checking that they're clean. Now, here we go. You see this is a little bit brown here. All I'm going to do is hack that off and throw that away. A tiny amount. Okay. Now I believe that this is the kind of thing that would get chucked out unnecessarily so. Now I'm going to very, very quickly show you something that I really love to do, because I very often say to people, don't just cook what you need for your supper tonight or your lunch, cook all of it. Now, as it happens, this is quite a small cauliflower, and all I'm going to do is break it into pieces, into little florets. There's no precision knife skills here. This is just very, very rough and ready. Now, I have a bowl here, a nice roomy bowl, and I'm going to put some rapeseed oil in, 1.5 tablespoons. And then, I don't know about you, but I find I have some of these kind of things lurking. It's called herb salt. It was probably a present. Now I'm just going to put in about a teaspoon. I'm going to reach for my chili flakes here because I love chili. And I'm going to season that with salt and pepper. Okay, so just recapping, any of this I can go through with you again. So look, that's just a bowl with those ingredients. I'm going to mix that up. Now, this is the tip I want to share with you, is that when you flavour things like this, you want to put those ingredients into the bowl, that way round, not on top. Now I'm just breaking these down a little bit further. Just pouring this cauliflower in. I'm going to toss that round. Now my oven is on. Now what I should have done actually, a baking tin, I'm going to put that in there. The point is that I think it's really worth using residual heat better and more intelligently. So what I should have done was put that baking tray into the oven 5 minutes ago, but it's fine, you know, it doesn't really matter. So look, I've tossed that around now, and then a little bit in a minute I'm going to just add that to the hot baking tray, and we're going to roast that cauliflower. Okay, now meanwhile I'm just going to take these bits of stalk that sometimes people will throw away, there's nothing wrong with it, roughly chopping it. Meanwhile we're going to crack on with the soup. I'll just put up the picture of a carcass there, because for our leftover pie, we imagine that's the turkey or the chicken or the goose or whatever. It usually looks like that, not very pretty. You pull off the meat and put it aside, and there you see the onions, celery, carrot, some aromatics, there's rosemary there, bay leaf, Can we see the next slide, please? Okay, here are the flavors. Well, sorry, I'm talking here about making a stock, using the carcass to draw out a really lovely flavorful stock that you can use. So here, roughly chopped carrots, onions, celery, and they are roughly chopped. No knife skills there. Some cloves of garlic, peppercorns, a little bit of fennel, bay leaf. And the next slide, please, Val. Now you pour all of that into a stock pot, the carcass, those aforementioned ingredients, roughly chopped in there with cold water. And the big question people ask is, how much water do I put in? Well, you just literally want to cover the top of it. Don't go up any higher because you'll be diluting the flavour. Bring it up to the boil. And at that point, turn it down to a simmer, lid on, for about an hour or so. Then turn the heat off and leave it to sit in that heat for another hour. Then you can strain it off, and what you've got left is your lovely stock. Okay, thanks, Val. Okay, so back to this soup that I'm making. I'm going to start off the soup the way all soups start off. Okay, can you see me, Val?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to make up a soup with carrots and parsnips, given that those are, again, often with the Christmas meal, you might well have bought more ingredients than you actually really need. We make up the Christmas meal on the day, and then we often have these ingredients knocking around for ages afterwards. So I would say strike while the iron's hot, and if you have these ideas in your mind at the get-go, this sort of commitment really that you will use them up. Now I'm chopping these vegetables up about that big. Can you see that? Yeah, they're half a centimetre or so. And again, don't feel that you need to have great knife skills here. This is just a rustic sort of soup here that we're actually going to blend, but you don't have to. Can you hear? I'm sorry, Val.
Like just to interrupt, so there's a question that came in.
Yes.
Miriam, she has this question asking if, because she heard that we can put things like garlic or onion with the skin. Is that correct?
Oh God, absolutely. That's a really, really good point. I mean, do you know what? I mean, that's kind of put me on the spot because it makes me think, why don't I do it? And I suppose in my kind of chef's mind, I use the skins if I'm wanting the stock to be browner. But, you know, sometimes I hear something like that and I think, well, there is no reason not to use it. And I will probably use it next time as a result. You can use the skin. Sometimes people say that those things are bitter, but it's fine to use it. If you use the skin, I would still chop them down. Like when you're making a beef stock, those kind of things are, those kind of flavors are really important. Okay, so I have got my pan hot. I'm now putting a tablespoon of oil in. I'm going to do a multitask here because I'm going to take out the tray that I put in the oven. I'm going to put my cauliflower in, sizzle, which is what I want. In, back it goes. Okay. Now my pan is hot. I've now got onion, celery, carrot in here, and I'm going to put that in. Now you hear that sizzling. I always like to put those ingredients into hot oil because you want to get a seal. When you make a soup, the initial ingredients you want to start caramelizing them. So I'm going to give that a few minutes. The sizzling will calm down, and I'm going to carry on chopping up some of these vegetables. Now the cauliflower that I took the root out of, the stalk, should I say, this is just the stalk of the cauliflower. I'm going to put that in because there's no reason to throw that away.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Someone is asking if there's any preferable choice of oil.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Someone is asking if there's any preferable choice of the type of oil to use.
Oh, yes, that's a really good question. Well, I use sunflower oil. I think that you can, so you can use olive oil would probably be my first choice, but actually the reason I didn't use it in this case is that I've got it over there in my, this is where my store cupboard is, and I'm just, straight in there. This, rapeseed oil is a home produced, the British produced oil. I very often favour using that for that very reason. And it has a lovely flavour and it's good for you. What you shouldn't use is an oil like the extra virgin olive oil. Don't use that because it doesn't like to go up very high in heat. Sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, vegetable oil is fine. Ground nut oil is also fine. So this is cooking down, as we say, and this is where it's at now. And what I'm looking to get is a little bit of colour on the vegetables, because that releases a nice caramelized. Caramelizing it adds a nice flavour. Now, on the subject of little hacks, and again, this is very much, I suppose, the chef background that I have, is garlic. I quite like to get, when the recipe calls for 1 clove of garlic, I very often chop up 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. It's as much work to do 5 or 6 as it is to do 1. So I mash it all up and I put it in a jar and I just cover it with oil. So that means that it's always, consider it like 3 or 4 days. So for example, this one, can you see that? I chopped that up 2 days ago because I knew I had a lot of cooking and I can just go straight in and I've got it ready. Those kind of things, one, it prevents waste and it also gives you more choice and tools to cook with. But be realistic about if you're at the start of a good few days of cooking, that's a good time to do it.
Sarah, I have another question. Someone asked if they can use coconut oil as well.
Yes, coconut oil, you're brilliant. That's a really good point. It goes up really high in temperature, so it's a good one to use, and especially so that it's got so many good properties. Again, thanks for that reminder. Okay, I'm going to put the garlic in now, and I didn't put the garlic in earlier because I don't want the garlic to get cooked burnt, because it goes bitter and it's horrible. So I'm putting the garlic in now. And I wait for the aroma of the garlic to hit me, and when that happens, I know that it's ready for the next stage. So it's usually about 45 seconds or so, and I can smell that coming up now. Now I'm going to put the rest of the ingredients in. So this is the carrot, the parsnip, and the cauliflower stalks.
Another question is, do the vegetables or the ingredients you're going to add now have to be cooked, pre-cooked, or raw?
No, they're not. They're all raw.
Okay.
They're all raw. This is using up, you know, ingredients that perhaps we bought too much of. So I'm going to just put it down a little. Jade.
Sarah, I have a question myself. What color should the garlic look like when it's ready?
Okay, I can't hear you. Can you go?
Sorry, I will repeat. This question is actually from me. What color should the garlic look like after it's, you know, when you know it's ready?
Take the call from Shapley, please. You're not listening to it in the other room?
Yeah, I'm a bit delayed though.
Okay, so if you can relay the question to me, because I can't hear.
That's fine.
Okay, so I should just ask the question which I didn't hear.
So the
Can you
question,
repeat that question for me, please?
sure, can you hear me okay now?
Yep.
So the question is, what color should the garlic look like for us to know when it's ready?
Okay. When do you know the garlic is ready?
Okay.
What color? What color?
It's when I put the garlic in, I can smell the aroma of the garlic arising. And when that happens, and I know that that's the signal for the rest of the ingredients. So it's the aroma of garlic coming up that tells me, all right, 15 seconds more and the rest of the ingredients go in. Now, I've got these vegetables here now are starting to soften. I'm going to put the chicken stock in. Now, I showed you earlier the picture of the stock pot and about an hour that you let the carcass and the flavorful vegetables simmer, and then I strained it off. And then I've got this stock left here, and I'm going to now pour this in. And again, people will ask me, or very often the big question is, how much stock do you put in? And the answer is that, for example, if you can see me now.
Yes.
Can you? So if the vegetables in my pan come up to here, and I'm going to put the same amount of stock on, I'm just aiming to cover the vegetables. Okay, so I have just topped up with a little water from the kettle. So, I can't lift that up. So I'm going to tip the, okay, so the vegetables are here. And I put that much. I've just covered, only just covered the vegetables in there. Okay, just dip in here. Okay, so I'm now going to bring up the heat quite high, and I'm then going to cover this.
Sorry to interrupt again, Sarah.
Oh.
So again, it's the same question, but now the person explained a little bit better about the question of the garlic. This person has no sense of smell. So she was asking, how does the garlic should look like to know when it's ready?
Okay, I think it's better to consider it a time thing and say that it's 45 seconds to 1 minute.
Great.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Okay, excuse me for a little bit of clanging. I'm going to put the lid on because it's quite important if we think about saving things and making resources last, is to use the heat well. And so I make a point of putting the lid on as soon as the moment is ready. I'm going to just have a little look at our cauliflower, by the way. You'll see that I don't use oven gloves because that's one of the sort of I don't know if it's a benefit, but certainly from just having my hands in a lot of heat over the years. Okay, so here's the cauliflower that I so roughly chopped up. I'm just going to give it a shifty. It's on quite a high heat, by the way. It's on 200. Can you just pass me that there? That's it, thank you. So I'm just, I just gave that a little shift. Okay, so our soup is starting to come to the boil now, and it's at that point that you're going to put the lid on and turn it down to simmer. Okay, now I'm going to move this actually onto a back burner, and I'm going to leave that soup now for 20 minutes or so. Now, why 20 minutes? Because all that we're doing here, and I'm just speaking logically here, is we just need to cook those small vegetables just need to be cooked out, and at that point that makes the soup ready. And at that stage, in fact, I've got one here. So we've got the soup ready, and basically this is that 20 minutes down the line. We can either blend this now with a hand blender, or we can consider, actually, I'm going to have this as a brothy soup as opposed to a blended soup. A blended soup is great when you're often, well, I mean, sometimes older people like blended soup. It's a good way of disguising vegetables for children to eat. Or I'm just going to show you in the kind of use it up mentality thinking. This is some kale. We often use some kale for our meal on that one occasion, and then this sort of sits around in the fridge. So I could, by the way, take this kale and just chop it like that and put that in and give it 3 minutes on a low heat, 5 minutes maybe, and then you've got a sort of a brothy soup that's, you know, or like a ribollita, the Italians call it. If there are any Italians, please don't tell me off too severely. But I'm going to actually blend this now, because it's very, very, you know, people like the comfort of a blended soup. I'm using a hand blender here, which they're not very expensive, and I think that's a fantastic gadget. Okay, so excuse me while there's a little bit of noise. Now, very much in the spirit of just, you know, winging it and not measuring things out, because you've seen that I haven't measured anything out here. So, you know, you might end up with a soup like this. Hold on, I think I'm going to use that better. So this is simply too thick. I mean, some people like it like that. So all I'm going to do is add some water from the kettle. I know that the stock in here is really flavorful, but I would just thin this out. And what you could do, if you had some spare cream, add some spare cream or some vegan cream, and then you have got a very nice soup. Now, I'm going to
we just have a comment rather than a question that
yes.
People said as well that you know, a blended soup is a bit creamy and it goes well with, you know, if, let's say if you add some cream, and I think you know, they're very two different ones, but yeah, good comment. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, you'll find that the parsnips and carrots are actually naturally very creamy. Now with the roasted cauliflower, I did put one in earlier, and this has come out now. And I mean, it doesn't look really pretty, but it's really delicious and earthy. And I'll just show you the thing that really makes it. Here's a bowl. So I'm going to just, the cauliflower is nicely tinged. I'm going to tip this into a bowl. And then I'm going to add what I think is the magic ingredient with cauliflower, and that's some lemon juice. So I'm going to come to this because this is another good savour. I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of lemon juice on that and toss it round. And that is fine as a cold salad, a room temperature salad, but this will keep in the fridge for 3, 4, 5 days. And you know what the point is that when you cook up all of the cauliflower, it sort of commits you to actually eating it, rather than have vegetables and ingredients languishing in the fridge that we just don't get round to using. You know, these are the reality that when you sort of like cook everything up together, you know, it just makes it a very immediate decision and choice that you can just reach for it straight away. On that subject, this is another big waster. It's green beans or mange tout. Again, we tend to just make what we need for that moment, for that meal, and then they end up, you know, you'll have a few beans at the bottom of the packet in the fridge that gets thrown out after a week. And what I say is cook all of them up, plunge them into cold water, drain it very well, put it in a clip box with some J-cloth or kitchen paper, and then you have something like that ready to go at any moment. And you're more likely to use that. So going back to the idea of the grain salad, where you have things like that and some nuts or sultanas in your store cupboard, you know, you realistically have a meal for the next day at the office. Okay, I'm going to speed on to the leftover pie.
Just topping up with the speed comments there. We are approaching, we have around 17 minutes left, just to give you some heads up.
We're good. I've got it. I'm used to working under this kind of pressure. I'm feeling it. Okay. So, leftover Christmas pie. I'm just going to introduce you some of those ingredients. This is chicken, but imagine that's turkey. I've got some roast potatoes, Brussels sprouts, some pigs in blankets, sausages wrapped in bacon, and some stuffing. Okay. Now I am going to basically. This is almost embarrassing, really, to have a chef doing this, because it's so absurdly easy. Part of me feels, but I genuinely make this every year. It's a tradition. Okay, here's the meat. I'm simply just going to roughly chop it. Roughly chop that. And into the big roomy bowl. Okay, the Brussels sprouts. Now, if people in the family can't stand Brussels sprouts, put them in whole. If not, I would cut them in half, or in fact, you can cut them in half and people that don't like it can pick it out. But people, you know, a classic Christmas meal is Brussels sprouts with chestnuts.
Yummy.
And those are very nice just to put into this Christmas pie meal. I don't mean open the packet for it, but if you have them anyway. Peas from the freezer. I'm a big fan of using vegetables from the freezer because they're very fresh and that was just a few tablespoons. The sausages, pigs and blankets, roughly chopped, if you have them, in those go. And then the stuffing that very often gets left. I'm going to chop this up. Okay, how big am I chopping these pieces? Really into small bite-sized pieces. Now, there we have that jamboree of different things here. I'm now going to get the gravy here, and I'm going to pour this on. How much gravy? Well, I'm just going to make it look moist and what I imagine will flavour. One other thing. A lot of people are vegetarian and they will cook a nut roast for their Christmas meal. So here is the nut roast. You can do exactly what I've done using the nut roast. In fact, I'm actually going to add some of this nut roast to our Christmas pie, and I'm just going to crumble it in. I'm just crumbling that in. And it's just going to be a big jamboree of different fantastic flavours. Now, if I was feeding 3 or 4 people, I would put it into a bigger pie dish, but I'm just going to do it in 2 small pie dishes. Okay, and I can freeze one of these, so in those go. This is a great gadget, if I didn't already say that, because you get everything out. Okay, there we go. And then the roast potatoes here. The roast potatoes, I'm going to slice like this, like that. Can you see that? And then I'm just going to lay these across the top. I saw Delia Smith doing something like this. And she called this the scales, like you lay them across like the scales of a fish. And I always, for some reason, recall the wonderful Delia Smith saying that. Delia Smith wrote a very good book, actually, on Christmas cooking. And I always recommend that for people that are taking on what feels like the onerous task of doing the Christmas cooking, because she has a very good section on leftovers. All right, now I've roughly placed those on there like that, and I'm going to now just put this in the oven and have a look what else is going on in our fridge of a lot of different things. So here is a Christmas pie that I did earlier. Here it is. There we go. Do you see that?
Yes, it looks amazing.
Okay, so you'll see that the top is golden, and underneath that golden potato crust is all those delicious things. It's the chicken, gravy, there's roasted parsnips also in there, Brussels sprouts, carrots.
This is making me so hungry.
So I'm going to put this to the side. And then I'm going to crack right on. This one is going to be for later. I'm going to freeze that one down. The next one, and just a little quick clean down. And I'm going to now do another demonstration with potatoes. So potatoes are one of the big wasters, generally speaking. And I'm going to introduce the idea that Love Food, Hate Waste talks about, which is cook once, eat twice. And this is a very good idea in rethinking how you use food, cook food, and how you make your ingredients go further. Okay, here we go. So, when you cook a jacket potato, it's somewhat an energy hungry this potato, you put the whole oven on to make jacket potatoes, and very often people make jacket. Do you want to sit down? Jacket potatoes for 1 or 2. So I say make 4 or 5 jacket potatoes. You've got 2 for your dinner tonight, and then you've got, say, some, well, in this case 2 or 3 left over. So the idea is to cut your cold jacket potato in half.
Do you need to wrap the potato in anything?
No, do I wrap it in anything, did you say?
Yeah,
No.
to go in the oven, aluminium foil, or just go as it is?
Straight as it is.
Okay.
I don't think you need foil. Here it is. I'm going to scoop it out. So you scoop out the flesh, and what I want to do is to leave a little wall. I want to leave a little wall here, just so that the skin has got some strength to hold the filling that we're about to put in it. So here is the scraped out potato, and at the moment I've just simply not even mashed that, just used a fork. And now I'm just going to add some flavors to that. Now one of the I'm going to make, yeah, let's just talk about what we're going to put in it. I'm going to make cheesy, chili, onion. I mean, really just that, you know, a cheesy, chili, onion, jacket potato. I mean, that's not bad, is it? I think you can add tuna to it. You can add bacon to it if you eat bacon, or bits of chicken, and you know, it's a blank canvas. You can put anything you like in it. In this case, I've chopped up a chili, some spring onions. Now, can you pass me those spring onions? Spring onions are a really great ingredient. So these ones here, you can see, look how they're looking old and dry here. So this is a perfect long life ingredient. You just simply take off the outer layer. Here we go. Just scrape off the outer skin, and then you can just finely chop it, and in that goes. Likewise, red onion. Red onion stays around very well, in very good condition for ages. You don't need to refrigerate that. You know, we sometimes we put our refrigerators under more capacity than they can deal with. You don't need to refrigerate potatoes, onions. The rooty vegetables very often will be fine in a cool place. Potatoes in a dark cupboard. And making your ingredients and storing your ingredients is another very good way of keeping, of maximizing your vegetables and your ingredients. So
I have a question here about the potato. Does it matter the size of the potato and how long it takes to cook, depending of the size?
Yes, that's right. It does. I mean, that kind of thing I would just Google. I mean, I tend to put the potato in and just know, but then that's not fair on there. I would just Google how long does it take. About an hour. I would say it takes an hour to cook a potato like that. You know, that's why I think it's really worth cooking up a lot of them. Excuse me while I get something to show you.
We have now around 6 minutes to go.
Val, what's that? How many minutes?
6.
6. 6 minutes.
What else?
We've got left.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay,
So here we've
go
got
a little bit over, but yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Val.
We have a lot of, we often waste a lot of cheese. So cheese goes dry and people throw it away. What I urge you to do is get your cheese, grate it into a bag, into the freezer, and then you can use it at a time like this. So I'm just going to put some cheese in here, mix it round, and then pile it back into my potato skin. And then I'm going to, okay, this is the final piece. Here we have some skins that have already been through. So that concludes the 3 different things that I wanted to show you. And now I'd like to invite you to ask me any questions that you might have.
Okay, so just the technical aspect of everything is that the call will end in 5 minutes, so that's all we have left.
That's fine.
We won't be able to extend. I thought we could, but yes, we don't seem to have any questions. But anyone, please feel free to type your questions now. We have 5 minutes, so Sarah is available to answer all your questions.
Did you see the potato skin that I pulled out of the oven?
Yes.
Yeah. So really, all I
really nice.
did there was, we got short on time there, is, the potato meat, so to speak. I added the grated cheese from the freezer, because it's a very good way. And this is a selection of red Leicester, cheddar. It freezes fantastically. So when you use your freezer more, you can use your freezer much better than we often do. I know that in the past I've tended to throw things in the freezer and think, job done. I've done what I should do, and then you end up just with a freezer stuffed full of things that you don't use. So
I have a few comments that just came through.
Yeah.
So one is I keep the bottom end of the spring onion and then regrow in water or soil in a pot. That's
fantastic.
A great idea.
Excellent. I love that.
And another one, it's a compliment. Great ideas for using leftovers. You are one cool chef under pressure. A cool chef under pressure. Happy holidays.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
And so those are the 2 comments. I just would like, before we end, to share a screen with you guys, where if you guys come up with any other questions, this is our email address, waste prevention team at northlondonwasteauthority.gov.uk. We also welcome any pictures or any ideas that you want to share with us, and you can share on our social media and Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, which is also on the screen. I hope it's there. It's taking a little bit long to load, but it should be there very soon. Oh, that's it. And also we have the website for Enfield, because this was tailored for Enfield residents. So if you have any further questions regarding your borough, here's the email for waste prevention that we can answer, but also the website for Enfield. But feel free to send any more questions. Yes, I think on that note, Sarah, do you have anything else to say? Any final tips or anything else that you want to say?
Yes, I just urge people to think about your ingredients differently. It enhances your enjoyment of eating an awful lot more. And happy holidays to everybody.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. This was amazing. I mean, watching you cooking and, seeing all this amazing, lovely tips, but also a yummy food that one can see from the filming. That is, something that I really wish I was there.
Hey, Val.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think on that note, I will say goodbye to everyone and happy holidays. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you all.